I'm Leo. I've been a recruiter for 10 years now. I've been in Finland for, that whole time. Basically, I've worked in a lot of different industries, everything from sort of gaming, SaaS. I currently work in defense. I've been consulting. I've done headhunting. So really quite a broad experience in that. And I've recruited for a lot of very, very technical roles. I've recruited for non-technical roles. I think the only kind of area I haven't recruited for potentially is legal, but that might be changing soon. So let's see what happens there.
Moving to the questions and answers part of this session, there were some questions written already, so I will start with those. Is it worth applying for roles when you are not fluent in Finnish, but the role requires it?
Worth it is that's a very personal question. Is it? I mean, it's up to you in a way. I think, if the role says that they require Finnish, you need to be aware that they may enforce that. They might say, well, you haven't mentioned fluent Finnish in your CV, so we're not going to move forwards. Essentially, is it worth it? Depends on, do you think it's worth the time to apply? In a way, that's a question that only you can answer.
To add to that, I also think it's important to understand if the role requires you talking to Finns, for example, like in a sales role, or if you are expected to write content in Finnish, then, my answer would be maybe no. But at the same time, I recently interviewed a person who has laboratory experience in a very specific area, and two jobs where she applied were written in Finnish completely, and she got both of these jobs, even though she doesn't speak any Finnish, and now she's a project manager of a team of the whole team is Finns. So it really depends on a
Yeah.
role. Another comment or even a question that I saw in the chat is that there are fake job descriptions.
Mm.
Do you know about those and why are companies doing that if those exist?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, some roles out there are not. I think fake's an interesting term because I think like there's always a reason to publish a job description. Like it takes time and resources, so there's no one doing it for no reason. There are some companies, let's say, who know a role might be coming up in like the last quarter of the year, and they kind of want to build a pipeline of people who might be interested so they can reach out later. There might be it can be as well that a company decides to publish a role and then closes it before they talk with anyone. If a decision gets taken to close the role or the requirements change, it does happen. I've had like, for example, sales roles that I've worked on where we've published them, and then the team have, maybe they've actually got a new lead on a customer and they've realized actually they need someone far more senior for this, and so we have to unpublish the role. And I think from the outside, what that looks like is it's just a fake role because you just disappears. Um, but as I say, there are a lot of reasons this happens, and as I say, I think the most common one that I've seen in my experience, at least, is that it is sort of building pipelines for later. It's really frustrating as a job seeker because you apply and then you hear nothing back, and then you see the role sort of posted again, which is really, really confusing. But like I say, I think there are some really sort of innocent reasons as well. Like even in the best run companies, like stuff changes. Requirements do change based on, based on the market, based on commercial decisions, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Uh, Kwabena, please ask a question.
Yeah, thank you. I have three in one question that I really want to ask. One, most of the time we learn that our CVs and cover letters go through 8 years before it gets to the recruiter. So, how does the CV be able to pass through the 8 year system before the recruiter gets it? And two, if it gets to the recruiter, assuming the skill set required is, let's say, 10, what percentage skill set is acceptable for a recruiter to be able to grant that CV a chance to review? That is these are the two questions I really want to ask now.
Yeah.
My
And
Sounds
favorite
good.
third
So
one,
with
sorry,
question.
third one, sorry. The third one is that in doing the CV, the skill set, should the skill set have measurable skills, or should you just list the skills you've done? There's a third one.
sure. So with the second one, I was trying to think how to answer that. There's no specific percentage because it really depends on the role. I've had some roles, for example, with one hard requirement, and I have some roles with 10. It really depends on the role. So that there's no specific percentage for that. My usual advice is if you look at the required, the top three in the hard requirements are usually the top three that the company's looking for. Usually. And again, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a good guideline. To your third question about how to list skills, a skill is kind of only relevant if you can actually describe how you've used it. Like, I could say, hey, I'm really good at recruitment. That means absolutely nothing unless I can say, hey, actually, the reason I'm good at recruitment is that I manage 20 roles in parallel, that I have an 80% offer acceptance rate, that I've hired 50 people a year. So in a way, if you're going to talk about skills, make sure you qualify them because that's what we're actually interested in. Because I have to go to a hiring manager and say, hey, I talked with Kwabena, and if you qualified it, I can say, actually, by the way, he's done this, this, this. Here are some results. And the hiring manager can say, okay, great, that sounds fantastic. Let's talk with him. If there aren't results, I have to say, hey, he's kind of done these things. I can't really talk about results. To your first question, there's a lot of misconceptions about the ATS. Essentially, I've had CVs uploaded as BMPs. I've had CVs uploaded as text documents, like Word, like text documents, Word documents, PDFs. It doesn't matter, basically. I made this comment to someone on LinkedIn the other day. Like, at the end of the day, we can see the file you uploaded. We can read it. Some ATSs will try and pull the information and put it into an easier to read format. They'll try and highlight stuff. But at the end of the day, as long as your document is actually readable, we can view it. Now, I've had some Word documents where the formatting gets messed up and you have like an image covering text or something like that, and then that's a problem. But that's not a problem with the ATS, that's a problem with the actual Word document because I went and downloaded that one and found out that the formatting was also messed up when you download it, which meant you weren't able to read it. I mean, my best advice is follow the guidelines on the ATS. If they say upload a PDF, upload a PDF. If they say upload a Word document, upload a Word document. I saw there was a question about filtering. ATS is some of them will try and provide a ranking or a score for CVs. In my experience, these are absolutely useless. As an example, I uploaded my CV to an accountancy role and came up with a score of 80%. I have no financial training. I've never been an accountant, but the ATS thought that I was 80% qualified for this because I'd mentioned AI. And so, yeah, like some recruiters do rely on these scores, a lot of recruiters do not. And so, what I would focus on is making sure that your CV is human readable. Make sure that if a human looks at it, they can actually they can read it and get the information that's needed.
A question from a chat. Should we really customize our CV for each job description?
Yes, I mean, yeah. So, when you're applying, we're going to be looking at your CV and we're going to be looking at what the role is. We're going to be looking at the description. And if your CV can talk about, for example, projects mentioned in the job description, that's really good for us because it means you've kind of done the work before, and there's a really good chance you can do it again. I've had, like as an example, we were recruiting a TA partner last year, and I was one of the ones like really involved in this process, and we had some people applying who gave really like untailored CVs, and they're like, "Oh, I've been a recruiter for 5 years." And I've worked in sort of finance and I've worked in this and that. And we had one person who said, look, I've been working for 3 years, but I've actually worked in defense. And these are the projects that I've worked on. And they were the one that we moved forward with because it made sense for the role. And so, yeah, I'd always recommend tailoring to the job description.
What do you think about Europass CV builders?
They're fine. I mean, at the end of the day, is the information on the CV A, accurate, and B, relevant to the job description? That's what I care about. The format to me is irrelevant. I've had someone who just wrote it in a Word document, just with no formatting at all, but they had the information in there, so we move forward with them. Just to say, as long as the information is accurate and relevant, that's what we're interested in. And
Ravenna,
I mean, as a quick addendum, sorry, like for roles like, for example, comms roles or like design roles, yes, the hiring manager might be looking at the CV saying, well, you're a designer. Why doesn't your CV look well designed? Or I was working on a communications role actually, and the hiring manager said, if a CV is more than 3 pages, we don't move forwards because what we want this person to be able to do is communicate information really succinctly. And if your CV is 4 pages, you're not able to do that. So, I mean, in hyper-specific sort of instances, then yeah, the format does matter. But generally, again, is the information accurate? Is it relevant?
thank you. Ravenna, please go on and ask a question.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for answering the question. The second question I also want to ask is that what is your view on using this AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, or anything to write CV and cover letter? And follow-up question is that mostly on the job description, you can be able to paste the job description in a ChatGPT or let's say Copilot, and it will be able to pick up the required the key skills required required for that particular job opening. Should you use the same keywords in building your CV and the cover letter, or you can alternate it or put similes on it to be able to make it tailor it to your skill set? I don't know if my question is understood.
No, it makes sense. So to your second question, yeah, in a perfect world, absolutely try and use the same language in the CV as in the job description. Absolutely. It's not like a guarantee of success, but it will help because it kind of shows that you've read the job description and that you're talking in the same terms. Personally, and I say this is my view, this is not across recruiters, I don't care how someone makes a CV or a cover letter. If you're using AI, if you're handwriting it yourself, if you're painting it, I really don't care. What I care about is the information accurate and is it relevant to the job description? I've had people who've pasted in a job description to ChatGPT, generated a CV, and ChatGPT has hallucinated a bunch of experience. And when I've asked them about it, they've said, "Oh, like that's actually not my experience," and it's really frustrating. So I say, "Well, if that's like, we have to stop the interview. I can't move forwards if because the reason we invited you is because of this experience, and you've said that you don't have it." So I think if you're going to use AI, please check the information, make sure it's accurate.
I would like to add to that I talked to many recruiters, and recently I had a session with one from Volt, and they specifically emphasize that they can clearly see AI generated CVs and they don't like it. So it depends on the person who reviews the job description. So you can make a decision yourself based on that. Leo, do you prefer a CV with 1 column or 2 columns?
I don't care. As in, again, is the information accurate? Is it relevant? And I guess, is it readable? I've had some people using some weird fonts, there was one font that I just couldn't read. And so I had to paste it into a Word document to see what it said. So, but again, is it accurate? Is it relevant? That's what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. Is the initial screening mostly done manually, or do you use any tool before reviewing CVs?
Personally, no. I use my eyes. I read a CV, make a decision based on kind of what I think. I use AI for note taking during the screen because it means I can focus more on asking questions and listening to the answers. But I'm not using AI to work out whether I want to talk with someone.
Mm. Mikashela, please go on.
Thank you, Lydia. So, hi, Leo. So my question is something similar to what Lydia asked earlier. If the person is having several years of experience, for example, let's say 10 years of experience, and the job description says it requires just 3 or 4 years of experience. So, what is your advice on this? Would you select this person for for an interview? Would you go forward with that?
As in, so if I understand your question correctly, if you have more experience than the job description,
Exactly. Yes.
it depends what you've been doing. Like if you've been doing kind of exactly the thing that the job description requires, personally, yeah, I don't believe in overqualified. I just believe that you're just going to be just like better at your job. Personally, there are some hiring managers out there who are worried, about people being overqualified, and I've had long, quite loud arguments with these people before in the past, and essentially it's come down to me saying, look, if you're worried about them leaving, you need to have a really good look at how you manage your team. But to my mind, at least, if you have more experience, I personally, when I'm recruiting, that's not a blocker for me. I just want to know that what you've been doing is actually relevant to the role.
Thank you.
And a final question from Slava.
Hi. Yeah, just a quick question. So I'm also a mobile developer. So I saw the CV for a mobile developer. So I was surprised how different they look. Right. So my question was, so I try to like I have this online portfolio, so I try to put all of my personal projects there. So I just like at the beginning of my CV, I just like have this big link like this is my online portfolio. But then
Yeah.
later on, I don't really have like I don't mention my projects. Um I might have highlighted one, but then I'm afraid that if somebody never clicks on the link, they are not aware what I have done. So that's one question, and another one related. So I just don't have a GitHub profile that I would like to share. I'm like currently not into. I don't believe in open source because AI things, scraping and so on. But so I kind of rely on here's what I done, this is what it does, this is what it looks like, but I'm not ready to share my code with everybody out there. The kind of what's your
Fair enough.
opinion?
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
So, I mean, on the first question, I mean, in a way, you need to give someone a reason to read your your portfolio. So, if you can say, hey, by the way, I wrote this thing which has got this result, and here's a link to it, that's a reason to read it. If you're saying, hey, check out my portfolio, someone might not do it. Regarding the open source stuff, I say it's something that I know a lot of like employers are interested in. It's not like a sort of a guaranteed way to move forwards, and it's not like a massive blocker otherwise. But let's say from my experience, it is something that's interesting to employers. If that's not your thing, that's absolutely fine. But I think it's something to be aware of. And if there is let's say an aversion to using open source and that sort of thing, that might be something that you might need to bring up in an interview and just say, hey, is this something that you're doing, or how are you managing this? Because a lot of companies are trying to move that way. So again, it's maybe a consideration for yourself.